My friends, at one point I realized one of the biggest issues you have to understand when mixing is phase issues. It determines how locked together your music sounds, how powerful the transients are, and whether your mix is gonna gel together. We're gonna save some time this episode by phasing out the intro and getting straight into the meat of it. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST.
Bro, this is still technically an intro.
All right, dude, I get it. Let's get to the first point about phase and go through it. Get it? We're going through it because it's a phase. The first thing we're going to be dealing with is, what is phase? Well, phase in audio is the relationship between two or more sound waves that have the same frequency. When two sound waves are combined, the amplitudes can reinforce each other or cancel each other out, depending on the phase relationship. So in stereo, phase relationships are important because they create a balanced and clear sound. In addition, phase can also be used creatively in audio productions to make different effects or to tighten up a track. Here's an example of something being in phase versus being out of phase. This is why you should always check to make sure that your audio is in phase with each other. Let's shift to our next topic about phase, which just happens to be phase shift. Got to bring those, transitions back. It's been a little while. One of the biggest things that cause this is EQ. EQ can cause phase issues because it affects different frequency ranges differently, which leads to phase shifts, literal shifts in the phase. When an EQ is applied to an audio signal, it boosts or cuts those specific frequency ranges. And if the filter is a simple filter like, high pass or low pass filter, it can cause a phase shift, which alters the timing relationship between different parts of the signal. It's really interesting because phase and time in music are kind of the same thing, and that's a whole nother little thing. We'll talk about that in another episode. We're gonna stick to the more important topics right now. So a high pass and low pass filter can cause a phase shift, altering the timing relationship between different parts of the signal. And this is because the filter introduces a delay in the phase response of the signal at the frequency being altered by the filter. All right, if this phase shift gets bad enough, it can cause phase cancellation when the signal is mixed with other tracks, especially if the phase shifts affect the frequencies that overlap with the other tracks, when they're stacking with each other. And this can result in a thin or kind of a weak sound, or even complete loss of certain frequencies. Let's show an example with an EQ to what phase shift actually is. Did you hear that? Hopefully so. I'm using JST EQ, and if you're a fan of how this new EQ is looking and sounds, make sure you grab a copy from the link below. Hopefully it's still on sale by the time you buy it, but if you didn't hear it in the example, let me try to simplify what phase shift is. Think of it like this, right? If you use EQ to boost the bass, it might make the bass hit a little later than the other parts of the sound. And this can be a really big problem when you're mixing a bunch of sounds together, because if they're all out of phase, they can cancel each other out and make everything sound weak or just totally disappear. Some other things that cause phase shift issues are time delays caused by physical distances between microphones or sound sources, reflections, echoes in a room, or even, large acoustic spaces, kind of like the one I'm in right now. And that causes the sound waves to travel different distances and arrive at your ears at slightly different times. And that's just talking about with filters. What if you were dealing with phase issues that had to do with stereo field? Stereo width can affect phase because when you adjust the stereo width of a signal, you're changing the phase relationship between the left and the right channels. To create a stereo image, the left and right channels of an audio signal are usually panned differently and also have different processing applied to them. And this causes differences in the time of the sound between the two channels, which can affect the phase relationship between them. And it's worth noting that some stereo widening effects like mid-side processing can be designed to maintain phase coherence, and it kind of gets rid of these phase issues altogether. However, in general, it's important to be mindful of the impact that stereo width adjustments can have on your phase relationship between the left and right channels of any audio signal. But let's show an example of phase issues that can be caused just by stereo width. Now, just make sure you're careful when you're using stereo wideners in general, because it's really easy to go overboard with these things. And another big thing to look out for when it comes to phase is, this is going to be for like the metal kit, phase cancellation in guitars, man. Phase cancellation in guitars can be caused by a few different factors, but one of the most common causes is the use of multiple microphones or pickups to capture the sound of the guitar. When two or more microphones or pickups are used to record a guitar, there can be phase differences between the signals from each of the sources. And that's because each source may be picking up slightly different parts of the sound wave. These differences can cause phase cancellation when the signals are mixed together. Let's listen to how this sounds. For example, if you're recording an acoustic guitar with both a microphone and a pickup, the microphone might pick up more of the sound from the body of the guitar, while the pickup might pick up more of the sound from the strings. And if the phase relationship between these two signals isn't managed properly, well, there can be phase cancellation that, once again, results in weak or thin sounds. And another cause of phase cancellation is the use of guitar pedals and effects. Some effect pedals like phasers, flangers, they intentionally cause phase cancellation, and they use that to make interesting textures and sounds. But if these effects aren't used carefully, it can also cause unwanted phase cancellation that degrades the overall sound. You just want to be really cognizant of that whenever you're using guitar effects. And to avoid cancellation in guitars, just make sure to manage the phase relationship between different microphones and pickups, and be careful with your pedals and stuff and the effects. This can involve adjusting positions of microphones or pickups, using phase reversal switches, or making other adjustments to make sure that signals are in phase and complementing each other rather than just canceling each other out altogether. And another big thing for anyone using guitars, to avoid it in double guitars, use a single amplifier and microphone to record both guitar parts. This makes sure that the phase relationship between those is at least consistent. Use a stereo microphone setup to record both guitar parts simultaneously. This can help ensure that the two parts are in phase with each other. Adjust the phase relationship between the two guitar parts by just using a phase button. There's a phase switch on basically every DAW, and it will work wonders if you just try to click that sometimes. And this can help you identify and correct any phase problems that could be present. And experiment with panning and EQ to make separation between the two guitars. That can help minimize the impact of phase problems that could be present. By using these techniques, you can create powerful and impactful doubled guitars that sound great and just don't have any phase issues. But not everything about phase cancellation is negative. You can use it to make effects, like I said before, or to create an acapella of a song. And a lot of people always ask about this. To make an acapella, you basically just have to have the original mix and then have the instrumental of it. And then you're just going to do a little bit of phase reversal, and you'll be able to extract the vocal from that, because the phase is going to be canceling on the waveforms that are the same and leaving whatever's left there for you to then save for your acapella file. You want to make sure that both of the tracks are perfectly in time, have the same starting point, invert the phase of the instrumental track. That'll make any audio signals that are identical cancel each other out. Play back the mix and the inverted instrumental together, and you should just hear the vocals from the original mix. Let me show you an example of what this is like.
Even when I try, even when I lie, I'm still wrapped in chains, pulling side to side. I'm so sick of being for way too long. Eyes that in your eyes, I'm nothing all along. I went through hell to find where I belong.
And it might not always be perfect, but it'll get you 95% of the way most of the time. Now let's talk about what we went over. Phase shift, phase cancellation, stereo width phase issues, creating acapellas, and guitar phase issues. With this knowledge under your belt, my friends, you'll be one step closer to pulling out the best mix that you can. Do you have any other questions about phase? Make sure to leave it in the comments below, and I will chat with you fine people like I always do. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. You only have to do it one time, and tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, my friends, catch you later.